It seems like Anna Kasparian, Cenk, Uygur, and the Young Turks as a whole are turning over a new leaf. Now, whether or not that's them being red-pilled, or maybe it's just them seeing the writing on the wall, knowing that all the ideologies that they talk about, all the agendas that they push are just going away. Like, nobody's really buying into that stuff anymore because we're seeing where that gets us. I mean, just look at more liberal cities and how much worse off they are than the more conservative cities out there. And you can even go on a state level as well. Everyone's fleeing to Florida and Texas and Tennessee and running away from, states like California and others just like it. So this one is going to be more around focused on New York. But just the fact that Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur are saying the things that they did about Eric Adams race baiting this old woman that simply asked about rent in New York City, it's pretty insane to see the development and the evolution of the Young Turks. Just recently, it seemed like they just completely flipped on how they used to be. But I don't know. I don't watch them regularly, so let me know in the comments if I'm wrong on that. But let's check out Anna Kasparian absolutely rip apart Eric Adams here, man. It seems like Anna Kasparian's actually learning.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams implied that an elderly white woman who had an important question to ask about unaffordable rents was speaking to him in a racist manner. In fact, he compared her to a plantation owner after she raised concerns about unaffordable rent. Now, before I show you the video, and stick around for it, I do want to give you the context so you understand where this woman is coming from. She has a legitimate concern, and she's representing the concerns of countless New Yorkers who are concerned about rents increasing. So landlords will be able to increase rent by 3% on 1-year leases. They will also be able to increase rent by 2.75% for the first year on 2-year leases and 3.2% for a second year. The rent increases apply to new leases signed on or after October 1st of 2023. So this has to do with the rent stabilized units in the city. There are about 1 million of them, and there is a board that makes a decision as to how much rent can be increased at any given time. Now, a woman stood up to ask a question about this. She is noticeably frustrated with good reason. This has to do with housing. This has to do with people being able to live in a safe place. And Eric Adams was not amused by it. Let's watch.
By the way, before we get into this Eric Adams clip, why does anyone want to live in New York or New York City? Like, why would anyone ever want to live there? It's a horrible place to live. The crime is crazy. It's just not, it stinks. Like, it's just not a good place to live. And on top of all of that, it's extremely expensive to get a tiny shoebox apartment. So why does anyone even want to live there? I just don't, for the life of me, I can't understand it.
Before and after you supported those rent increases, in Nashville, they had a 0% rent increase. Why in New York City, where the real estate is controlling you, Mr. Mayor, why are we having a horrible rent increase last year and this year?
Okay, first, if you're going to ask a question, don't point at me and don't be disrespectful to me. I'm the mayor of the city, and treat me with the respect I deserve to be treated. I'm speaking to you as an adult.
Oh, I want to make jokes so bad. Like, I'm not going to go too hard on him, but I'm just going to say, tweet me with the respect that I should be tweeted with, okay?
Don't stand in front like you treated someone that's on the plantation that you own.
Isn't it so wonderful when someone asks you a question that makes you uncomfortable, you could just weaponize race to shut her down? That's exactly what happened there.
So this one has a little bit of nuance, not a lot.
It's crazy because how I see this going is Anna Kasparian wants to go off on this guy. Like, immediately when the clip ends, she's like, isn't it funny how you can just weaponize race anytime you get backed into a corner, anytime you get proven wrong or get asked a tough question? And Cenk's like just cuts her off immediately and tries to take like a much more middle of the road approach, a much less fiery approach. As you'll see, Anna Kasparian will get very red here in a second because she does get very, very heated on this topic.
So the little bit of nuance is, yeah, it's true that a lot of times some folks talk down to minorities and they do it in a way that is grating on the nerves in every imaginable way. It's happened to me a little bit, but my God, I've seen it happen to black people in a way that is maddening, okay? So that's your context, and I get it. At the same time, when you become a representative of the people, you must be accountable to the people. And you can't just say, oh, okay, you've got a problem with rent. How dare you talk back to me? I deserve respect. Nah, okay? And to me, put aside the race thing for a second. The whole concept, and it is pervasive in America, that politicians deserve a lot of respect. I loathe it. I don't think they deserve that at all, at all. And I've seen people go into Congress and then all of a sudden say, I'm a congresswoman or I'm a congressman now. Who gives a damn? You're the same person, right? And they get this air about them like they're big deal. No, you're supposed to be a servant of the people. You're not supposed to lord over the people and be like, I am more powerful and I have more status than you. How dare you ask me an impertinent question and point your finger at me? No, we all get to point our fingers at the politicians and ask, why haven't you done your goddamn job? And are you kidding me? Like, you're getting upset about someone asking about rent being too high in New York City? I mean, how fragile is your ego? If you can't handle that, you shouldn't be mayor of New York.
So he claims that, he has nothing to do with the decision that was made by the Rent Guidelines Board, that he has absolutely no say. I would venture to say that the mayor of the city could, apply some pressure and look out for the people of New York. But he claims, no, hands off, I have no say in this whatsoever. That's his argument, he insists. Now, I do want to give you some numbers in regard to what Americans are dealing with when it comes to the housing crisis and the unaffordable nature of rent. So the this is the highest percentage of New Yorkers facing an affordability crisis in the 23-year history of a study that was done. So according to the study, let's just go back and I'll give you the details on that. There was a study released in April that showed that half of all households in New York don't make enough money to cover basic needs like housing, okay? So according to the analysis, this is the highest percentage of New Yorkers facing an affordability crisis in the 23-year history of the study.
So like, once again, why live in New York then? Like, go somewhere else that's more affordable. You can probably find a place pretty nearby, somewhere in the Northeast region that's a lot more affordable and also has a lot less crime, stinks a lot less, isn't overpopulated like New York is. Just get out of there.
And also marks a significant degradation of life quality since 2021, when the organization's report found that 36% of working age households weren't making ends meet. Listen, people are working their asses off in this country, okay? Working overtime, long hours, barely making enough money to afford housing, okay? They did everything right, they followed all the rules, and they can't even afford to put a roof over their heads. Goddamn right they're angry. And for any politician, anyone who signed up for this, who ran to sit in the seat that Eric Adams is in right now, to deflect and immediately imply that someone is racist because she dare ask you a question in an aggressive way, I'll grant him that, in an aggressive way, about this very real and serious issue, it's just infuriating. I'm sick of all of it, okay? I'm sick of these politicians who run for public.
She had to catch herself. She was about to say she's sick of all these leftists. She's sick of all of these liberals using these same strategies, using these same tactics to get out of these tough questions, to avoid answering these tough questions. I know she was about to say that, but she has to hold her tongue a little bit because they have to have a little smooth transition over into truly conservative, into truly red-pilled territory. Also, it's crazy. She's talking about how, 50% of people can't even afford to have like food, can't even afford, don't even have living wages because of how expensive New York is. And what's crazy is not only could you just leave, it's insane that anybody wants to live there. Not only do they want to live there, they want the entire country to be like that. Like people like Hassan, people like how the Young Turks used to be. Like they wanted the country to be, the entire country to be like New York City and Los Angeles. It's insane.
Office, run to be public servants, and end up being anything but.
Yeah. So look, a lot of times in my life, I have gotten either subtly or over the top overtly, you don't belong here. Okay. So I know how that feels. I know exactly how that feels. And
come on, Cenk. Who tells you that, dude? You look like a white, guy, and so you hear your name, like you could pass as a white dude. Like there's no, who's telling you that, bro? Who is kicking you out of places because of that?
So I have sympathy for that. But if you become an elected representative, you must represent those people and you must take their criticism. Look, we do a talk show here and we take your guys' criticism all the time, right? And we deal with it and we explain it, we explain the parts we agree and disagree, etc. You can't go around saying, how dare you bring up a perfectly legitimate issue and a critique of me and then hide behind any issue, but yes, including race. And you say, oh, you can't, what do you mean hide behind race? That's outrageous. What do you mean? You think Clarence Thomas didn't hide behind race? When he was accused credibly of sexual harassment, what did he do? The guy who denies that racism exists at all of a sudden called it a high-tech lynching. See, that's hiding behind your race. Okay, so it can happen and it does happen. And I think in this case, Eric Adams did do that.
Can we just, for a second, acknowledge the power dynamic in this exchange?
Yeah.
He's the mayor of New York City. Let's just consider that power dynamic. That's it. Okay, I mean, we're not talking about some rich, privileged white woman who comes across an impoverished black person and yells at him for no reason. This is a powerful man. He is the mayor of the largest city in this country.
The irony is the people who they talk to, the people who the Young Turks have pandered to, the people who Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur have pandered to for the longest time, don't believe that to be true. They don't believe the power dynamic to be in Eric Adams' favor in this situation, because if you are white, it doesn't matter if it's the president of the entire universe. As long as there is a white person, it doesn't matter how broke, it doesn't matter how trailer park you are, the white person is always in the position of power in these people's minds. That's how they work. That's how they think. That's how these leftists think. So the power dynamic is irrelevant that she's talking about to most of these people, including Eric Adams. He probably still thinks that that white woman, even though he's sitting on the podium, people are asking him questions about how he's running the city that they live in. He still thinks that that white woman has more power in the world than he does. I promise you. Or if he doesn't think that, he'll at least say that. He'll at least, pander to the crowd that does think that, because that's how he gets elected. So it's very ironic that the Young Turks and Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur are the ones who are saying these things, because they have been saying for the longest time that that white woman in that situation would have more power than Eric Adams does.
She has a legitimate concern and is representing a concern for countless New Yorkers. To brush her off as someone who just sounds like a plantation owner so you don't have to answer the question, pretty gross.
And he didn't. He never answered the question. And so, look, here, again, I'll use myself as an example, and it's not at all an exaggeration. I've literally had somebody grab me by the elbow and walk me out of a place saying you don't belong here, okay? So, having said that, if I become the mayor of New York City, I don't get to say that anymore because I've achieved a status of power, and my job is to use that power on behalf of all of the citizens and not to make excuses. And also context matters. Now let me give you the other side of the context. Every mayor of New York City is pointed at and yelled at. I mean, Eric Adams, who is actually a moderate to conservative Democrat, you want to see somebody getting yelled at? Bill de Blasio was yelled at. The former mayor of New York, who is a more progressive Democrat, was yelled at and pointed at 1,000 times, 10,000 times. So are mayors of New York yelled at? Hell yeah, they are. I mean, come on, it's comical. It's comical. It's New York City. If you can't handle a constituent and you won't answer a question and you come up with a lame excuse like that, that's embarrassing.
So it's pretty crazy to see the red pilling in real time of the Young Turks. Once again, let me know in the comments if you think that the Young Turks are truly being red pilled or if they're just seeing the writing on the wall and realizing that there's more money to be made on the red pill side of things, on the conservative or common sense side of things, rather than pandering to a very small but loud, minority out there. Let me know what you're thinking about this clip about Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur talking about Eric Adams comparing a woman to a slave owner because she asked about rent and pointed her finger and maybe was a little bit mean about it. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this Young Turks video.